Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my reaction to Doctor Who Season 1, Bad Wolf Series 14 Season 40, Episode 4, 73 Yards. Before I get into talking about this one, I'll quickly mention that I also rewatched Boom on Friday, the 24th. So I then watched the 73 Yards yesterday on broadcast, and then today is at time recording Sunday the 26th of May. So Boom, I liked it more on this time around. I would still probably give it 8 out of 10 at this point in time. I'll see what I think about for the review, but I still think after Space Babies, it's my least favorite episode of the series, including Christmas and even including the 60th specials. But it is a very good episode. I think I do like it a bit more, and when it flowed a lot better for the second viewing. As for 73 yards, I am like with the first two episodes. My parents who also watched the series with me were out, as was my sister, but she doesn't really watch the series at the moment. Um, sorry, voice message, deal with that later. And anyway, they were out, so I watched the episode on my own. And then after they got back, they put the episode on, so I joined them for it. Might have missed a little bit at the start and one or two other bits during the episode, but I'd already seen it, so it was okay. So technically, I've seen this episode twice. Like with Space Babies in the same night, might even have been a shorter time gap for this time. Both episodes, so two viewings of the same episode, same night again. So my thoughts on 73 Yards after my first and second viewings. Well, this episode is brilliant. This is such a creative episode, very spooky. It incorporates those Welsh folk horror elements and ghost or demon or fantasy stories that they were setting it up to be, and then they also go into this clever story about Ruby living her life without the Doctor and with this mysterious woman shadowing her, and anyone who goes over to talk to her runs away and is scared by Ruby for some other reason, including, much to the shock of many, Carla Sunday, her adoptive mother. And this is where I think, like, this story is a very personal story for Ruby, and even Kate Stewart in Unit also gets scared off. It's a very tough story for Ruby Sunday. It's definitely a very character piece. And then later on in the story, it becomes a political thriller with a lot of tension with this dangerous prime minister or slash prime minister to be for part of it, and then he becomes prime minister. And very dangerous man that the Doctor had mentioned, and now we are seeing this dangerous man coming to power with his ideas. So Ruby has to find a way to stop him from that, all the while coping with this mysterious woman. So it's a nice blend of that Welsh folklore, horror, and political thriller with a bit of the curse of Clyde Langer from the Sarah Jane Adventures added in with the lady when people talk to her and they all then run off and abandon Ruby, scared by her. Carla putting an injunction out against her, which was a surprise unit abandoning her. Very much like in the Curse of Clyde Langer, where when he gets a splinter from a totem pole, and then anyone who says or reads his name or hears his name, apart from Sky, becomes antagonistic towards him and hates him and thinks he's the bad guy, except for the character Sky, who is an alien, so she's immune. And then she's the reason why that gets all resolved. But unfortunately, we do not have a Sky Smith in 73 Yards. It is Ruby and the mysterious woman, um, or Ruby having to deal with the mysterious woman for the rest of her life until something at the very end, which I won't spoil the episode. Um, but there is a way to resolve all of this. But it's a very clever episode in that regards. It doesn't explain everything, which is fine. You don't need to be everything doesn't have to be explained. The more mysterious stuff is just as interesting as the explained Sea Wild Blue Yonder, which I might still consider the best episode of the Bad Wolf slash RTT RTD2 era so far. But in terms of the 15th Doctor, this one is currently my favourite, and well, obviously favourite of season one. Sorry, notification just there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'd give it an entire 10 out of 10 at the moment in time, because one of my nitpicks is that there is I think the political thriller story could have been a little bit longer. I think there could have been a bit more to the guy's reasoning, or a bit more about, oh, for goodness sake, stupid notifications, a bit more about his plan. But what we get was effectively scary in the terms of, oh my god, if this guy gets the hands on these things, he could do very bad things with them. And most of the people around him are okay with that, because he's seemingly quite a charming guy, even if there's a bit of a darker side to him hiding in there that some of them can see. But my slightly more nitpicky pick is with the character of Marty, who is kind of just added, and then the episode kind of focuses on her a little alongside Ruby and the Prime Minister Roger. And it feels like this character, there seems to be a plot, a side story, a the wording, a subplot with her, that some of it seems to be missing. Like Marty meets him, then she gets scared of him, and then Ruby realizes she's sorry she couldn't save her, and then does her thing to resolve the day. Spoiler alert, by the way. And then like that's sorts everything out. But the character, like Marty's, she's sweet, she's nice, but I think there's something that's between her and Roger that's missing, other than he's a bit of a creepy dude who's going to get his hands on nuclear weapons and launch them. I had the theory that maybe he came onto her after meeting her for the first time, and that plus his intensity and plans are what have frightened her. And knowing that he's got that darker side down within him is what really scares her, before Ruby ends up saving the day. But yeah, I do feel like there was a bit of a plot point missing there. Everything else, pretty damn brilliant for what the story is trying to do. Stuff at the Welsh pub, really great, building up that tension, that scare, to a good payoff. Ruby going back home after leaving the Wales, after kind of giving up trying to find the Doctor, and then all of the stuff that starts going wrong there. It's like, if the Welsh stuff felt creepy, and like there was stuff was all strange and all, but once we get back to London and her home and family, that's when things start crashing all around her. And then same with Unit and Kate. And then as time goes on, things are she's just getting lonelier, because she can't concentrate on a relationship, because she's always got the woman around her, and she has to get by. I mean, she doesn't seem to be like very poor or anything. She's still in work and doing well for herself, but she's always got the woman around her, and everybody who's known her before has abandoned her, or she can't commit to new relationships. So it's a really struggle for her, and this is even after stopping Roger as well, and jumping forward to the end of her life. Spoiler alert. And I think the twist at the end can be interpreted as one of two things. One of them seems to be the more general, that might be what the episode is doing, or what most people have thought is what happens. And the other thing is something some other people have theorized might be actually what's happening. Yeah, but yeah, I think the episode overall is a very strong episode, and very tenseful in its suspense building, with the different story angles it's doing, like the Welsh folklore store stuff, then everybody abandoning Ruby, and then the political thriller stuff, and then finally coming back around to horror towards the very end. So it's a very good horror and thriller episode, as well as a very good character piece. And also, this was the first episode of season 1, Bad Wolf, to be filmed after the 60th anniversary specials. And it's the first episode to feature Millie Gibson after she was cast as Ruby Sunday. So remember that Children in Need companion reveal in November 2022. This episode started production in December of that year, and only has the 15th Doctor in it for a small amount because Ncuti Gatwa was away filming Sex Education. So he only filmed his stuff at the very start and end of the episode, which is at the same locations. They could do it at the same time, etc. And it's a Doctor Light episode for the most part. Back we've got a Doctor Light episode here, and Millie Gibson is thrown into the deep end in her very first episode, and she smashes it. She is outstanding. You would not believe this was her first episode from the performance she gives the character in this episode. Every performance, every single moment. Well, maybe with the possible exception of when she's really looking out the window blank in the pub at one point. But that could be intentional by the director as well. Yeah, wow. You would not believe this was her first episode as this character. You think this might be like near the end of the series production, or at least a couple of episodes in, like it is in the release order. But no, this is episode 1 production-wise. Smashed it. It's first time. Smashed it. And, she's been consistently amazing as a Ncuti. But this episode is just on a whole new level for performance-wise. And it's probably the best performance of any actor in the series since Peter Capaldi in Heaven Sent, which might be the strongest performance of an actor in the series, full stop. Sorry, Tom Baker fans. But yeah, this was incredible. And considering we've had strong companion and the Doctor Light episodes, like Turn Left is probably the next closest example of how this is done, and that they share some of that dystopian, not so much dystopian future in this one's case, but dangerous alternative future that episode has. Some people have mentioned this, has compared stuff from this to some stuff in Years and Years, and whilst it's not as bleak as that, Turn Left is much closer to how that series goes, but it certainly shows elements from there are back in here, have been reused for parts of this story. This is Russell T Davies after all, and yeah, it works really well. This is such a really effective episode that mixes with the genre, the different genres it's trying to tell with this specific story. That it works really well for a great character story. Not everything does line up, and I think there could have been a few more minutes to maybe iron out some of the stuff on the political thriller side episode, not part of the episode, and maybe make it a little bit more easier to understand in places, but not knowing some other stuff is also just as good. So, nitpicks aside, this is a very strong episode. It's a bit of a hard-hitting episode, not as much as, say, Rosa, for example, or some other ones, but it's definitely a big gut punch episode, and throwing in some supernatural, scary stuff and political thrillers stuff, and yeah, this is easily the best episode of the series, and this is coming from someone who really liked Churchill and Ruby Road a lot. So yeah, best episode of the era is probably still Wild Blue Yonder for me personally, but this is a close second, and definitely the best of season 1 and the 15th Doctor so far. And yeah, that's all I got to say on this at this point in time. Proper review coming down the line later. I say proper review. I'll definitely talk a bit more about, hopefully talk a bit more about it and be a bit more critical, or at the very least opinionated, and give the final score, or at least the final score of the time. But next episode is looking more interesting than I suspected. Looks like we're going back to science fiction this time after a more down-to-earth and fantasy / horror / thriller based episode with this one. And then next week it looks like we're going back to science fiction with a episode that seems to be taking like the internet into account, like stuff about the internet and social media or interactions over the internet and computers and stuff, and some insectoid monsters roaming around the place. So it looks like it's going to be a mixture of the Macra Terror meets modern technology with a few 80s slug/insect monsters thrown in for good measure. So it's going to be a bit of a mixture of who genres in there, which looks could be pretty interesting. So the internet thing is a reminder of Bells of St. John, but it does feel very like it could be a very present day setting thing, and I feel like that's going to be pretty interesting to explore next episode. And then, of course, we'll have Rogue, the Bridgerton episode of the series, Regency set by the looks of it, and then the two-part series finale back in the present day, or at least by the looks of it. So, until next time with Dot and Bubble. Next time is Dot and Bubble, sorry. And I'll see you guys then. Until then, thank you for watching, and goodbye.